good to be back with you. For those of you who don't know what I've been up to, I just would like to share with you a little bit about my journey. So we had an opportunity, my family and I, to go together with the Nexus group to help us get started for a few days away and to kind of build those relationships. So it's kind of cool to see the wives get to hang out together, the kids get to hang out together, which oftentimes doesn't happen. And then on the way back, we stopped in Sheridan, Missouri, which you've probably never heard of because it's like a dot on the map. And that's where I gave my life to Christ at, in a small country church there, Sheridan Christian Church. And so blessed by them and what they've done for me in my life. And without the impact that they made on my life back then, you guys wouldn't have the leader that you have today at Connection. And I'm so thankful for all those people there that have made an impact in my life. They're also people that financially supported us very early on, and it helped us a lot in getting self-supporting as a church and kind of building that bridge. But I had an opportunity to speak there, to visit with some of those old friends. And then the last couple of weeks, like I've been here, I've been working. You just probably haven't seen me so much unless you're involved in one of the small groups that I've been a part of. But on Sunday, then I would take off for Council Bluffs, Iowa. Why Council Bluffs? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one is I already knew that for the month of June that I had a summer teaching team put into place. This is the second year we've done that. Didn't those guys do an awesome job? If you've been over here the last few weeks, I think they did a fantastic job. Really love to see what God is bringing through them and how He's using them to do things. And so when Council Bluffs lost their pastor in what was a heart attack, unexpectedly he passed away. I just reached out to them and said, hey, if you're looking for somebody to fill in, I've got a couple of weeks I can come over there and help you out. And so I spent about 6 years there in my ministry. The first half while I was in Bible college, the second half afterwards, and a lot of good relationships there, and so they really helped to form me into who I am as well. So great to be able to give them back a little bit, and help them out for what they're doing because of what they've done for us in getting started in ministry. So that's where I've been, but you guys have been on a journey here. And so some of you, like if this is your first week, you don't know anything about this journey, and I'll try to bring you up to speed. Some of you, you've been kind of getting bits and pieces over the last few weeks and even a few months. And so a couple of series ago, we were in Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7, and we did this series called Raising the Bar. It's based on the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus is giving His most famous sermon ever, and He continually is raising the bar. He's asking His followers to step up their game. And really, He's driving past the external actions that we have, the things that everybody on the outside sees, but really is focusing more on the internal motivations, the why we're doing what we're doing. And in that effort, He's striving to get us to understand that we are the light of the world. Right? Other people see the hope of Jesus in us. And in order to make a difference in the world, we have to be different than the world. And then this last month, we've been in 1 Peter through a series called Exiles. What does it mean to be an elect exile, chosen to stand out in a place where you're being persecuted? And so Peter, one of the disciples of Jesus, is writing to the persecuted church, and he's telling them that their hope really isn't in their situation or their circumstances. It's not in what they've done or what they've said, but their hope is in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And through this resurrection of Christ, as a response to that, then they live this holy life. They continue to stand out. They continue to be different so that other people can actually experience the hope that they have in Jesus Christ. And so in this series, Arise, as we dive into the book of Esther, we're actually going to be looking at a group of people that were exiles in a foreign land. And so this is at a weird time in Jewish history. And I'll try to bring you up to speed a little bit because chances are you don't know the Old Testament timeline. And I remember even in Bible college laying this out and not really getting it. Part of it is I put it off to the last minute and tried to do it as well. That does not work, by the way. So trying to get a good understanding of where this fits kind of helps us understand the context and the setting a little bit better. So Esther is located on page 410 of the Bibles that we provide. So if you want to turn there, you sure can. Otherwise, it'll give you time to find it in your own Bible or on your app. And so the Old Testament history is a little bit like this, and it's not like a regular book. You read it from Genesis to Revelation, and you just go one right after the other. So you've got Genesis, the beginning, so the creation, the origin stories, and then you've got Exodus, where they're enslaved in Egypt, but they are delivered out. They spend some time wandering in the Promised Land, and then overlaid with that, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And then Joshua takes over from Moses, leads them into the Promised Land, annihilates all the enemies that are before them. It's a really awesome story. And then the time of Judges happens. So people just kind of rebel. They do their own thing. And then God raises up a judge. They follow him. They do good for a while. The judge dies. They go back to worse than they were before. And you just have this bad record on repeat, this cycle that goes back over and over again. Then you get the time of the kings, right? They have their first king, and then they have a series of different kings. The kingdom splits. They have two lines of kings. Israel and Judah have their own. And through that time frame, you have the prophets, the chronicles, and all of this is happening within the same time frame. But the kingdom to the north, Israel, is enslaved to Babylon first, and then Judah is not far behind. And so King Nebuchadnezzar of the Babylonians removes the best of the best people from the Israelites, and everybody else is kind of left to fend for themselves. I mean, they're killed, they're raped, people are eating their own kids. It's ridiculous, like how desperate and dark these times were. But the Babylonians only ruled for a while until the Persians came in and they took over everything, it seemed like. And this is the time frame in which Esther was written. The Israelites have lost most everything that they knew. But they were starting to see a glimmer of hope because they've had the temple rebuilt. But Nehemiah hasn't yet come back and built the wall to fortify the city. And there's Esther. Esther chapter 1, verse 1. Now in the days of Ahasuerus, the Ahasuerus who reigned from India to Ethiopia over 127 provinces in those days, King Ahasuerus sat on his royal throne in Susa, the citadel. In the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a feast for all of his officials and servants. The army of Persia and Media, the nobles and governors of the provinces were before him. While he showered the riches of his royal glory and splendor and pomp of his greatness for many days, 180 days. So this guy has another name. Perhaps you know him better as Xerxes. Right? There's been a few movies, TV shows that kind of have this Xerxes character in it, so you may know him a little bit from this. So this is in his 3rd year, and what he's really trying to do here is show off. Right? So Xerxes wants all of his royal officials to come in over this 108 days, not all at the same time, but sequentially. He brings in different groups into the palace, shows them a good time, shows them all the stuff that he's got, all the things that he's achieved, right? How much money he makes, how powerful he is. And so each time in that group you go back to, oh yeah, the king is so awesome, he's got all the stuff, he is so amazing. Like this is the rich of the rich. And I just got invited to spend some time with the king. Well, that time frame was over, and then he threw a party, a 7-day party, where anybody from the very rich to the poorest of the poor were invited in to his courts, and they got to see just how amazing it was, just on the outside even. It talks about how amazing the curtains were, and the jewelry, and different things that they were able to see. But probably the most impressive part in this whole 7-day party was the open bar. Right? This is a crazy story. Esther, in so many ways, it's like its own little component of all Scripture, and it's weird. And it doesn't mention the name of God, not even once. But I think that part of that is because this is such a desperate time. This is a time where they've been taken away from home. They've been sold into slavery. They've kind of began to start developing their own life in this foreign land, apart from God. So amidst all of this partying in Persia, there are some Israelites kind of lying in the lurk. The open bar. Crazy thing, read this in verse 8. And drinking was according to this edict. There is no compulsion. For the king had given orders to all the staff of his palace to do as each man desired. Okay? this is a mess. Right? There is nowhere in the world that you can say you have an open bar for 7 days and bad things aren't going to happen. Right? It's just a mess. And then it says, on top of that, Queen Vashti was throwing a party for the ladies during the same time frame. But the real craziness happens in verse 10. Because King Xerxes has been showing off, he's been showing his power, he's been having the parties, inviting everybody in, but now he thinks he needs to one-up his game, which is never good after you've been drinking for 7 days. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded his eunuchs. A eunuch is castrated men. Right? So if you're going to work with the beautiful ladies, then you're going to be less than a man. That's kind of what this means. So he commanded the eunuchs then to bring in his wife, Queen Vashti, with her royal crown in order to show the people and the princes her beauty. For she was lovely to look at. I know that it doesn't say this here, but there's a really good chance that he was expecting Queen Vashti to come in with her crown. And only her crown. He was expecting to show his friends her jewels. And Queen Vashti didn't want anything to do with that. So she refused, it says. And how do you think the king, who's trying to show off for all of these people, responded to that? It says he was furious. And he'd just been humiliated in front of all of these guys. He had no idea what he was going to do. And so he reached out to these guys as advisors. They were supposed to be wise guys. I don't think they were very wise, and you're going to see why in a moment. Because he's like, what does it tell me in the laws and all the decrees? What can I do with Queen Vashti? Because she is humiliated. So they have this bright idea. So let's take Queen Vashti out of the king's presence, and she's never allowed to come back again. And you can go out and find a better queen. Kind of what that meant was, you can find somebody who's even better looking and will actually do what you say. Why is that important? Because all of these guys are looking out for number one. Because every single one of them is thinking, okay, when I go home, if my wife found out that your wife didn't respect you, then my wife isn't going to respect me, and that's not going to get it. So really what they're wanting is their wives to submit to them, do whatever they want them to do. So this is crazy. And then wrapped into this whole fairy tale story, we have our own little American dream of becoming a princess and a queen. And so Esther, this young Jewish lady, gets to rise to prominence, right? There's this hope that she can one day become queen because that's the kind of king you want, right? Not so much. So within this idea, it says in verse 19, let the king order a royal decree that is written into the laws of the Persians and the Medes that it cannot be repealed. That meant once they wrote a law, you couldn't change it. Not even the king could change it. And so he did. And he made this decree, and in chapter 2, verse 1, you hear these words. After these things, when the anger of King Ahasuerus, and I would say also the alcohol, had abated, he remembered Vashti and what he had done and what he had decreed against her. I think in that moment he was like, oh, dude, I just so messed up. Right? She was a really good woman. She was off doing her own little woman party thing. She was dynamite, like on a scale of 1 to 10, she was a 20. And I had her, and I just lost her because of me. But before he could throw his little pity party too long, he was reminded, yeah, there was a plan. Right? And so the eunuchs come in, they share with them the plan. Remember, we're going to go out, we're going to find you a new queen. And so we're going to go out into the countryside, and we're going to bring back in all of the beautiful women, the virgins, right? They've been with nobody else. And we're going to put them in with the other virgins in what's called a harem, the place for the ladies to live. And in this harem, they're going to be beautified for a year before they come into the presence of the king. So we're going to take your beauty and we're going to take it to the nines. And they're left in charge of them, believe it or not, is the eunuch. Right, so they do this, and all of this is going down, and then we get to verse 5. Verse 5 is kind of a fulcrum. It's a tipping point in the story. It's where the plot begins to take a turn. It says, now there was a Jew in Susa, the citadel, whose name was Mordecai. Mordecai, a couple things about him, we learn that he was actually taken from Jerusalem, from his homeland, at the time that Nebuchadnezzar of the Babylonians came in to lead away captives. So Mordecai was a Jew who had been taken away and placed in Babylon and now in Persia. Mordecai had an uncle who passed away, but had a daughter, and so he adopted this daughter, Hadassah, to be his very own. Just basically, so his cousin was living with him as a daughter. He was treating her well. But when this whole thing was going down, he realized that Hadassah, Esther, she was a very good-looking woman. And so she too was taken away and put into this group of ladies, into the harem, where they were beautified and eventually presented before the king. And it says in verse 12, now when the turn came for each young woman to go into King Ahasuerus, after being 12 months under the regulations for women, since there was a regular period of their beautifying, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with spices and ointments for women. And when the young women went into the king in this way, she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. Meaning, she could take fancy clothes, she could take jewels, like anything that might make her stand out before the king so that she would have favor in his eyes. And in the evening, she would go in, and in the morning, she would return to the second harem in custody of another eunuch who was in charge of the concubines, and she would not go into the king again unless he delighted in her and called her by name. You probably don't get this because at first it seems like, oh, they're doing a little Miss Persia contest. Right? So we're going to go find all the beautiful women and we're going to take them away against their will. We're going to put them in this harem, this other group, and they're going to be beautified. They can go in and have the day spa for a year. This is going to be awesome. Right? And they're probably told how to act in the presence of royalty and all this other jazz, things we would see in movies, let's put the book on your head and walk all proper. Things like that. They're learning everything that kind of goes along with this. But here in the contest, it's not just a talent show where you do a little sing and dance. It's, hey, let's go in and perform for the king on a one-night audition. So if you're not tracking with me yet, the king can choose his queen based upon how she performed in the bed. And so Esther, in our fanciful mind, we can think, oh, this Jewish woman, like she became queen, and it's so amazing. It's a Disney story. Yeah, by Hans Christian Andersen. It's a mess. Right? So she is swept away, and she gets to be queen to this man who is arrogant, who is prideful, who is self-serving and self-seeking, who is a womanizer, who would take these women into his own little room, and when they would leave the next day, they would go in with the concubines, which meant sex slaves. And so if she performed well enough, and if he delighted in her, he would ask her to come back to perform again. Right? But if she didn't, she was now a widow. She was used and abused, and no longer good. So placed in the house. Well, that sounds like great. Like, we'll bring in all the beautiful women, and one will get selected, the other one will get thrown out the back. That's rough, right? This is the kind of queen you'd want to be, isn't it? Not so much. And so there with Mordecai is Esther. And in verse 15, it's time for her to go in to see the king. So when she went in, she asked for nothing except for what the eunuch, the king's eunuch, had told her she should take. I kind of view it a little bit like this, that this guy saw something special in Esther had a pretty good idea she's the one that's going to win the contest. And so he invested a lot of resources into her. So that she would win, so that she would come out on top. And why? Probably because eventually Esther was going to be his boss. And she was going to be in charge of the eunuchs. And so if you want to have good standing with the future queen, now's the time to start. But she goes in, she listens to the advice. Apparently the eunuch knows what the king likes. She wins the contest. What's the reward at this point? Another party, because hey, when you're in Persia, party like the Persians. And so this one's in honor of the queen, though. Everybody comes out. There's no taxes for a while. That's awesome. Right? So all of this goes down, and we're left at this point in time with a huge, what just happened? This weird story, this obscure story is in the Bible. For what? Let me tell you why I think that it's there. Because throughout the story of Esther, in this time where they're removed from their homeland, when they're in exile and tormented, when really they're not tapped into their ancestry, their faith, their religion, to God, God is still working behind the scenes. Where is He working in this story? I want to share with you where I think in this part God is working. It's in verse 5, chapter 2. Now there was a Jew. When you read the story, it's like, oh, hey, looky there. Fun coincidence. But when you look at it with spirit-filled eyes, you go, I see what God did there. That even amidst their turmoil, even amidst their unfaithfulness, a God who is always faithful and faithful to His promise, is promised to redeem the Israelites. He has promised to save this group of people, this remnant that would still believe in Him. And how did He do it? He did it behind the scenes when they didn't even turn to Him. Tells me a little something about us. I believe that in our lives, in our situations, even when we're living for ourselves, pursuing after the most selfish things ever, we're more partying it up and living to the nines. When we're chasing our significance in alcohol or other enhancements, if we're chasing our significance in women or men, when we're looking for our significance in the approval of others, in all of those things, really bad things can happen. But even when those really bad things are happening, God is still faithful. Even if you don't think that you see Him, He's lurking behind the scenes. And He's moving to make things happen. So I want you to ask yourself this. This is our next step. Where am I looking for significance from? What is it that I'm striving to find, to fill, to make some sense of this life, to find some sort of hope or some sort of answer? Is there something in your life that you've been chasing after? And so as you come to God in what's going to be our time of communion, I want you to just be able to have a heart-to-heart with God. Say, God, where have I missed you? Because I'm too busy pursuing something else. And throughout the story, we're going to see God at work, and we're going to see that His rise to the surface, though isn't easy to spot, is a lot different than what you and I are expecting. Where is it that God